What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. I am back in the land of the free, in the great state of Florida, back in the Miami Beach studios, man, feeling great. Was able to watch a ton of college football on the flight, probably more than I ever could. Man, no kids pulling me in activities. I could just watch football. So it ended up being awesome, crossing the Atlantic, watching some ACC ball, and then later some big-time SEC showdowns. It was a lot of fun, a lot to get into. A lot to cover. The latest news. We'll talk about FSU choking, which we talked about. We had the post game on that one, but now the result of them choking is that they will not host College Game Day like Miami had the privilege of doing a week ago. FSU cannot do because they lost to Virginia. So Alabama, Vanderbilt's going to get that game. We'll talk about that in a second and more. Get your questions, all that. Some folks who are not chokers, guys who are there ready to rock and roll. That's Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or anyone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. There's JR Bar right there. Yeah. FSU chokes away Game Day. Let's talk about it real quick, man, because I don't know how to feel about it. Part of me is disappointed because I wanted to go to the Game Day. Part of me is just kind of laughing at FSU's misfortune. There you go. Week 6, Tuscaloosa. College Game Day is going to Alabama. Rematch of last year's upset. Diego Pavia and the boys going against Alabama. Ryan Williams, all those dudes in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It was all set to be Miami FSU. And then, as we know, FSU played a middling ACC opponent on the road. Their first real test since catching Alabama off guard. And they got beat. They'll probably complain about a snub and all that, just like they did last time. They'll say, oh, Alabama, we beat Alabama. Why are they getting rewarded? Do the usual complaining that they did a couple of years ago. And as we saw a couple of years ago, after all the complaining, it was followed by one of the most humiliating blowouts in bowl history, certainly in big-time bowl history. And then what's followed since then is one of the worst programs in the country. I believe that was the record since that snub. I believe it's like 5-11 since the snub, 5-12, I believe. So that's what we're talking about with FSU. That's the direction they're going as they head into a big showdown with the Miami Hurricanes. Coach Jenko, sub D, I'll be in Tally next week. And you going? I will be there. Game Day won't be there, but I will be there. Welcome back. Appreciate everybody. Pack out of here. Oh, look at this. Green Tree. K9. I'm going to wear your polo tomorrow, man. That's a hell of a polo. I wore it just hanging around. I forgot to wear it on the show, but appreciate you sending that over. Green Tree K9 Private Training says, Go Canes. Coming to you live from Arrowhead Stadium today. Some NFL football. Yeah, man. I mean, look, I'll be calm. I got my kids with me. I won't be how I used to be. I'll be a little more classy. But yeah, not much I need to say. They blew it. Hopefully there's a hangover from that. But FSU had the whole thing laid out. This is going to be a top 10 matchup. They were going to win against Virginia, a team that had 3 offensive linemen out for the game. Whole thing was laid out. They turned it over 3 times. Virginia did. Didn't matter. FSU couldn't stop the run. Their glaring deficiencies exposed. So, yeah, I mean, look, how does this affect the game? I don't know if it affects it too much. Certainly there's a lot of attention during a game day week. Some might find a distraction. We played well with College Game Day the last 2 times we've had it. So that served to be a boost for us. Certainly brought a lot of good attention to the school, to the crowd, showed, what it looks like to go to college in University of Miami versus Tallahassee or whatever other school you're looking at. But Tallahassee won't even get that shot to put their best foot forward because their team's not ready for that level of spotlight. So Brett Pand asking for some general ACC thoughts. This is probably a good time to talk about it. Appreciate you prompting me there. It was a big day for the ACC. A lot of games. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Crazy game. Could have gone Wake Forest's way. Georgia Tech got some calls in their favor. Ultimately, I think they're in the right track, Wake Forest. I think they're heading in the right direction. The coaching change is going to work out for them. I really love DeMond Claiborne. I think he's one of the best backs in the country for Wake Forest. Haynes King, he just kind of always finds a way. I hope he can last until the ACC championship and Miami can rematch him just so we can conquer that demon. But the guy is one of the best players we've had in the ACC in recent memory, man. The guy is a complete warrior and did what he needed to do to win. Tristram, appreciate you, man. Look at this. USMC in the chat. Go Canes. Again, appreciate all you do for this country, Tristram. So, shout out to you. JR Barr says, like the way FSU performs after a snub. That's what we're hoping for here. But yeah, ACC, the Georgia Tech game, Georgia Tech was the better team. They deserve to win. I don't think they're any kind of powerhouse, but I do think Haynes King's probably the ultimate competitor right now in the ACC, certainly on teams that are not us. He's the guy who's been proven and who's been battle tested. And I'd love to see him in the ACC championship just to conquer that. I think they're the favorite given their schedule, given that they avoided this potential pitfall what they did in the Clemson game. You got to think Georgia Tech is the favorite, but every game's dangerous. I'm sure they didn't highlight Wake Forest as a game they could potentially lose, and they lost that one. What else? Obviously, the FSU Virginia game. We talked about that one at length. NC State taking a bad loss to Virginia Tech. Watch some of that game. I think ultimately with that one, NC State's just a weird team. Something about them is just not there. They're in a lot of close games. They win some close games. They lose some close games. It never seems like they're just clicking on all cylinders. They lost a ton in the portal. Almost their entire defensive backfield went to places like LSU, USC, other schools. So they lost a ton there. You see Concepcion, what he's doing at Texas A&M, one of the more explosive receivers in the SEC. So they lost a ton in the portal. Still some talented guys, but Virginia Tech had that game. We've had this before. You fire the coach. Team plays at a pretty high level for what they've been doing previously. Just that little inspiration playing for the interim coach and playing against a team in NC State that really has a lot of holes. Most impressive game I saw, Duke against Syracuse. Syracuse without Angeli is not really much of a team. I think Fran Brown's in for a tough season because he did lose Angeli. Tough break is not his fault. I think that was a smart portal pickup. I was always a big Angeli fan. Smart, accurate player who can really deliver the ball at the college level. He's going to miss tremendously because the reason they brought him in is because the backup Ricky Collins wasn't very good in the spring, the LSU transfer. So going to be a tough season for Syracuse. Duke looked good, taking care of business. Mensa played very efficient. He's having a really good year so far. Louisville and Pittsburgh. I didn't get to see a ton of this other than the highlights, but it looks very much like your standard Louisville game. Miller Moss passed the ball at a pretty high level. Running game didn't really get going. Chris Bell, I want to highlight, number 0 for Louisville. And let's highlight him and Colin Lossie. Because when you look at this team, obviously they're very flawed. They were down big in this game, Louisville was, and clawed their way back in. But what they bring that I think is going to be different than most of the teams on our schedule, they have real explosive playmakers. Look at Isaac Brown. We talked about him. Didn't have a huge game in this one, but he's a very explosive player. The running back out of Homestead, one of the best freshmen in the country last year, guy who had a long run against us. But then at receiver, Chris Bell, number 0, and Colin Lacey. Colin Lacey was hurt last year, redshirted. He already returned to kick, had 95 yards yesterday, long at 37. He's a very explosive player. And then Chris Bell, he's one of the best combinations of size and speed in the country. Going to be an NFL guy. Big, over 200 plus pounds, really built more like a running back, but has that breakaway speed. Still a little raw as a receiver, but he's in that one that makes those big explosive plays. So Louisville has explosive playmakers. Our guy Jaleel Skinner, you may remember, had a touchdown catch, former Miami signee. So that was my big takeaway from Louisville in general. Pittsburgh, this is kind of a Pittsburgh game. They blew it. Holstein couldn't protect the ball. They do have some very, very talented linebackers. Rasheem Biles, man, this guy's, he looks like a defensive back, but he's a linebacker. 12 tackles, a sack, 4 tackles for loss, and he took a pick to the house. One of the best players in the country. We talk about just pure playmaking ability. Rasheem Biles, linebacker / safety / whatever you want to call him for Pittsburgh. Really, really explosive player, number 3. Kyle Lewis, also a very good linebacker. So there's some talent on these teams. It's typical ACC ball, lack of consistency. I don't see anybody that really is a threat to Miami if Miami plays well, but there's teams that can give you bad days if you do not play to your standard. One last result there, California going to 4-1, 1-0 in the ACC with a win over Boston College. JSK, man. This guy is a stud. Sagapolatelli. Sorry, JKS, I apologize. Sagapolatelli, the lefty from Hawaii, signed with Oregon, then quickly switched to Cal when became clear Dante Moore would be the starting quarterback there. I think he made a good decision getting the opportunity to play. If he decides to jump in the portal, he's going to be the most expensive player in the portal, hands down, unless something changes from now to then, because he is really, really, really talented. But yeah, I think the big story we talked about was LSU. And we'll talk about that matchup all day. But ultimately, I think what you have here is FSU, talent-wise, is similar to these other ACC teams. They got some good players. They're pretty weak in the trenches. They don't have a tremendous amount of depth. They're net losers in the portal. I think in FSU's case, portal and draft, they were net losers. They didn't bring enough talent in. They lost guys to the draft and from the defensive backfield as Araya Thomas, guys that could help them. Then also Josh Farmer up front. I mean, they were 2-10 last year, but they still lost players that could help them. When you look at what they brought in, not a lot of impactful NFL type bodies from what I can see. We'll break down this game even more, but that's, I think, ultimately with FSU, I don't see a lot of talent aside from Deuce Robinson, good looking big wide receiver who can get the ball in the air, and then Daryl Jackson, who we know is up and down and is really symbolic of this losing culture that FSU's had, kind of the anti-Jared Fisk, but someone that does have physical tools. Other than that, I really don't see it with FSU. And I think when you're talking about all these ACC teams that we just went over, they can play a good game or they could play a really, really bad game. They don't have the talent to really elevate their floor and their consistency and their margin for error. What else we got here? Let's see. Coach Jenko saying, I know Billy's seat is ablaze when his Magic mics start to heat up. Hopefully after this blowout this weekend. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, Cal Sneaky good. Yeah, ACC Huddle will be there. Yeah, shout out to ACC Huddle. That's the silver lining. I like those guys did the ACC. Done ACC programming, not TV, but just like podcast stuff. Was with Gramlich and McLean, my boy Emac, when he had Kelly Gramlich, and then when she was on maternity leave with Taylor Tannenbaum. All those people are awesome. It's a great crew over there. So that'd be pretty cool. At least that Huddle it'll be like our game day. But from an FSU standpoint, we had both. We had Huddle and we had College Game Day. I think we're just that kind of program right now. Robert Perez, what's the number one concern going to FSU? Contain Castellanos, another Beck subpar performance, wide receiver separation, our first road test. I would say number 4, or how are we going to play on the road? We're going to match their intensity, those kind of things. Are we going to play to our standard? If we play to our standard, I think I have zero concerns other than, freak injuries. So, but that doesn't mean we're going to. Canes Cat Heat 305 says, tell us about Greece. Yeah, Greece was awesome. Was on the island of Pados. Shout out to Melissa and Timmy getting married there. Awesome event, high class deal. No clouds over there on the Greek Isles. So that was just awesome time, man. Saw a lot of octopus. Ate a lot. It was great. I wish we had that kind of weather for the FSU game so we could throw the ball over the yard. What's up? What's up, Port Knox? Great comment here from JR Barr. Exceptional D-line and O-line play travels well. Put running game in that category. We've heard Nick Saban make that same point on College Game Day. Now that he's covering these games, he said that repeatedly. And a lot of stuff he says, what you see with this Miami team and the way it's built. All right, what we got going on here? Let's talk about where Miami stands with some of these top teams in the country. So let me pull up here the playoff bracket from Bud Elliott, because this was a really interesting week. I know a lot of comments already, a lot of questions. There we go. Here we go. I like Bud Elliott's his national stuff. I know he's a Knoll fan this week, but he knows that their team sucks. So here we go. Let's look at the playoff projection. Tulane, solid team, beat the brakes off of Manny Diaz, but nothing that you need to think about from a championship standpoint. Texas Tech, more talented than your typical Big 12 team, but I'd probably put them in the same category. So let's put those to the side. These, to me, are the best 3 teams so far through week 5. I think most would agree. Ohio State, Oregon, Miami. Really what separates these teams to me is they can all pass the ball. Ohio State, best receiving core in the country. Julian Sain, I have questions about his tools, but he can deliver the mail, especially against inferior opponents. Smart player. Oregon, I'm a big Dante Moore fan, believer. He showed up over Drew Aller here in the game last night against Penn State. I think he has the size. He has the arm strength. He has more experience than most. He's played more than Sain, for example. Still hasn't played a ton. I think he will get better over the course of the year, but the tool set is there. Like how he finished the game here in overtime against Penn State, delivering a big-time throw. His tool set's very, very, very strong. So they can pass DeCorian Moore at receiver. They're a little thin with the injury to Evan Stewart at receiver, but they got guys that can make plays. DeCorian Moore, the superstar freshman, chief among them. And then Miami can pass. We've seen with Carson Beck, Malachi Toney, CJ Daniels, the explosive threat of, like, for example, a Jeremiah Smith or a DeCorian Moore. I think that's fair to question. But Carson Beck's thrown for a lot of yards and won a lot of games. So we do have a passing threat here, certainly a decision-making game management threat with the Miami Hurricanes. So all 3 teams can pass. Next up, can they run the ball? Ohio State, always able to run the ball. CJ Donaldson, good versatile pickup from the portal. Guy we've liked forever. Highly high school product. Can catch, can run. Been doing a good job as a big back for Ohio State. And they need that dynamic presence. And I think Bo Jackson, the freshman, the true freshman, has been doing it for Ohio State. Oregon's got a fleet of true freshmen. I know a lot of people thought Mekhi Hughes from Tulane might step in there and be that running back. He's fifth string because their young talent's doing well running the ball. They ran the ball well against Penn State, so I'd put them in that category. Of course, Miami can run the ball. Offensive line, all three of them have a lot of talent up front. I think Miami is the best of these groups of offensive linemen, the biggest, most experienced together, best coach, just the whole package with Miami. 3 years of elite offensive line play, top 5, top 10 offensive line play, 3 straight years. Guys like Cooper, McCoy, of course, Francis, a lot of experience. Brockermeyer's an experienced guy. Markel Bell at this point's experienced playing good football. So I think Miami is the best offensive line of the three, but they all can protect the passer. They can all run the ball. They can stop the run. Some really, really talented fronts here. Ohio State's defense reloaded. We've seen what they can do. Oregon, Dan Lanning, that's always going to priority. I like what they have at edge rusher, the two Paulies, DJ's brother. He's number 10. He can get after it. And they have some size in the middle with Bear Alexander and number 52. So they got a good front with Oregon. And man coverage, all three of these teams can do it. I think probably Miami and Ohio State at a higher level than Oregon, but Oregon has pretty good defensive backs as well. So really all aspects. Talk about the pass rush with the defensive ends. Talk about the ability to stop the run, play physical up front, the ability to cover man, the ability to pass protect, the ability to run the ball, ability to pass. I think these three teams have been the most complete in those categories. Okay, now as you go on, look at Alabama. Huge bounce back win over Georgia. I think that was on the road. I mean, it was really an impressive win for a lot of reasons. But I think when you look at Alabama, still struggling to stop the run. Georgia ran all over them. Let me pull up the stats here. But they got smoked in the running game, which is not what we are used to seeing from Alabama. Much more of a Kalen DeBoer type team. After 2 years as the coach, you look at the rushing. Alabama, 117 yards, 3.1 yards a carry. Georgia, 227 yards, 6.9 yards a carry. Hard to win when that's the kind of running disparity. Alabama was able to pull it off. Gunnar Stockton, just not a very talented quarterback. A lot of reasons why Alabama was able to get it done. Ty Simpson played a really, really clean game on offense. But I think you saw the same thing against FSU, where Alabama didn't run the ball as well as they should have. FSU ran all over them. These are things that they need to get fixed before you consider them to be a true Alabama team. Texas, Arch Manning, got to get him right. Right now he's struggling. Still early with Texas. I think that's a team that could peak late, but based on their current form, you wouldn't say that they're a national championship type team. Offensive line, I think, could use some work. Indiana playing really, really well. Everybody knows I love Mendoza. I thought he played great against Iowa. Tough performance, facing NFL throws. You're Phil Simms gushing about him. I think he's on track to be a first-round pick. They're better than last year, in my opinion. They've already got 2 quality wins. Going on the road to beat Iowa, blowing out Illinois. Got Oregon coming up next on the road. That'll be a tough game. But I think overall, this is a team that can win double digits and win more quality games than last year. Better team than last year. But still, I don't know if they're national championship caliber. Ole Miss, really impressed with what Lane's done. One of the best play callers. We all know that in the nation. That defense has been consistently good. I thought they lost too much talent. I picked against them, against LSU. But they really, to me, controlled the physical aspects of the game on top of the play calling. Trinidad Chambliss, the Ferris State transfer D2 player playing at a high level. Austin Simmons is a really good quarterback too, who's injured. So this is a team that has 2 good quarterbacks. There could be some portal movement there. Keep an eye on Chambliss, has 2 years of eligibility. Austin Simmons guy kind of plays a lot like Tua. But you look at the running game again. I keep going back to this. 170 rushing yards for Ole Miss, 59 for LSU, 2.8 yards a carry for LSU, 4 yards a carry for Ole Miss. Lacey, very good pass protector, very physical back. So I think with LSU versus Ole Miss, you're seeing Ole Miss, which you thought would be a running gun type of team, really had that solid foundation, running the ball, stopping the run, playing physical on defense. And then offensively, whoever's at quarterback, whether it's Chambliss or Simmons, is going to play at a high level. I like the addition of Lacey. I like how their young receivers look. They've replaced that position pretty well. You saw Caleb Odom making plays. They are always going to do work on the transfer. So shout out to Lane Kiffin for building something consistent there. Nicholas Lamar, our old friend Chris Graves Jr., a good game for Ole Miss. Grizz, LSU's offensive line is terrible, bottom of the country. Yeah, LSU can't protect. They lost a lot to the draft. They weren't that good last year with all those NFL players, quite frankly, and they can't run. So, yeah, other than that, there's a lot going on. See, Penn State, same thing as before. They're a team that has a lot of talent. I'm a big James Franklin guy in general for what he's done to that program. I remember what that program was before. I mean, we're talking about the worst scandal in the history of sports, probably. I don't know how much worse you can get than what they had. And they were able to bounce back from that and become a consistent winner, producing NFL players. I don't think it's a team program that on autopilot is just going to be a top 10 team. James Franklin's gotten them there, but we all know he hasn't gotten them over the hump. My problem with Penn State, their passing game, it's just, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. Drew Allar's just not an instinctive player. Great size, great arm, can move. Not a guy who's deficient from a, toughness or work ethic standpoint from everything I could see. I don't see great passing instincts. That passing game just never gets going. They've added receivers in the portal. They're still not there. 137 yards passing. Oregon, significantly better in the passing game. Oregon really should have beaten them by worse than they did. Going to 2 overtimes, they outgained them 424 to 276. They just look to me like the much better offense, top to bottom. And then to me, this is the big issue if you're Penn State. Oregon, 176 yards rushing. Penn State, 139. That's not a huge disparity, but to me, if you're Penn State and you can't pass and you got two running backs that are NFL and a line that you think is going to be one of the best offensive lines in the country, you have to dominate in the running game. And you're not doing that if you are Penn State. And I think that's a mentality problem. Cole Nicky from Kansas, I'm not sure if he is doing the things that he needs to do from an identity standpoint to give this team the best chance to win. Now, they were in two overtimes, right? So it's not like they were out of this game getting blown out. When you lose these big game consistently, there's a problem. And I just think for this team with a quarterback that's not as instinctive as, for example, a McSorley, who was a real playmaker for him a few years ago, I think they just need to lean on their identity, run Singleton and Allen to the ground. Neither of those guys have really been outstanding. Allen's been better than Singleton, but what's Singleton? I looked at his stats. I couldn't believe it. So Nick Singleton, who was considered one of the top 2 running backs in the country coming out into the season, 3.8 yards a carry so far, long of 16. For a guy with his speed, that's unacceptable. Katron Allen doing much better, 7.1 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. But I think you got to ride those guys even more and go play action off that with Drew Aller and his big arm. But this, to me, needs to be an old school running team. They just don't have the passing game flair. You look at Texas A&M. To me, Texas A&M is a team that is much better than I thought, quite frankly. So Texas A&M played Auburn this weekend. Texas A&M was able to win that ball game. I think when you look at that game and those two teams, Auburn is worse than I thought. Texas A&M better than I thought. Both teams that really, really worked the portal. Both these teams were extremely, extremely active in the portal, and they both got great talent in the portal. But I think in terms of putting it together, obviously Texas A&M 4-0, 1-0 in the SEC with a big win over Notre Dame. Auburn 3-2. So the results completely different. Look at Texas A&M. They got homegrown guys. Marcel Reed, better than I thought. I didn't think Marcel Reed was going to be able to consistently win in the SEC as a passer, and he's doing just enough. The playmaking ability of receivers blown up. Casey Concepcion, NC State transfer, having a huge year for Texas A&M. Mario Craver, the Mississippi State transfer, extremely explosive. Those two are really the bulk of the receiving game, and they both are able to make big plays. Running game, a nice 3-headed monster. Mari Daniels, the Miami Central back who's been there forever. He's still holding it down. Ruben Owens, former 5-star, showed some explosive flash with a 33-yard run. And then top of the charts, Le'Veon Moss, 139 yards, 6.6 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. He's already got 5 touchdowns on the year, having a monster season. The big back out of Louisiana, experienced guy, rugged. So he gives them their power run. They have some guys that can change pace, and then they have the speed of receiver, well-coached defense with Mike Elko. I think the key to this team, offensive line, is excellent for Texas A&M. You switch to Auburn, and you had a dual-threat quarterback, Jackson Arnold, just like a dual-threat quarterback and Marcel Reed. I think what you're seeing is that Marcel Reed's just a much more natural passer than Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold, to me, he plays like a running back, is really the best way that I could say it. Just from a decision-making standpoint, just doesn't seem quick. He has plenty of arm, but just doesn't feel like a natural passer, whereas Reed, it's not perfect, but he has much more feel than what you see with Jackson Arnold. Arnold, to me, 15 carries. Running is going to be where he makes his mark. Cam Coleman, 4 catches for 18 yards. That's inexcusable. It's one of the most talented receivers in the country, which is what Auburn has. Eric Singleton, this hurts to watch because he's somebody, this is the Georgia Tech transfer, one of the fastest players in the country. one of the highest rated receivers in the portal, who visited Miami last offseason before we added Carson Beck when we didn't have a quarterback. He goes to Auburn, and now they can't get him the ball. And with his speed and his playmaking, I think he could have been a really, really, really good weapon for Carson Beck. It would have really finished our wide receiver core as that fourth piece, kind of what we're hoping for JoJo Trader. He could have really, really solidified that. Unfortunately, we don't have him, and he's not here, and he's struggling. So that's one fit that I wish we could get back. But Auburn, to me, where I see their big struggles atop of Jackson Arnold not performing and just showing a lot of instincts, is their offensive line. Xavier Chaplin, big left tackle transfer from Virginia Tech, was one of the highest rated transfers in the portal. A lot of people thought he was going to be a first round pick. A lot, like serious people, NFL people, is a big guy, really, really athletic, all the tools, but he's been a disaster. False start after false start, has been beat, holding penalties, just sloppiness. When he gets guys, he can get them because of his size and athleticism, but he is really, really struggling. And he got benched at one point. This is a $1 million transfer player. So not a good look for Auburn. Lord Baconton, after seeing all these games yesterday, Miami, Ohio State, best two teams in the country. Nobody has a Bane and Messidor. Trenches number one. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate you always, Lord Baconton. I think Trenches is a differentiator, and Miami is there. Ohio State, I think you put there as well. Ohio State and Oregon. I think Oregon's competitive in the trenches. I'd say Miami has the best trenches of all these teams, but the other teams are competitive, and they have their own advantages. Ohio State's biggest advantage being the best wide receiver in the country, the best really offensive player in the country, best receivers. So, yeah, I would agree with that. Then last team here, Georgia. In Georgia, they just don't have that many good players anymore, man. It's not that they have bad players. I mean, they have talent. There's no question that Georgia has talent. But when I look at this Georgia team, I say, who are the difference makers? And I'm talking about real difference makers. Like, Georgia has for years had the Jalen Carters of the world, Nolan Smiths. I mean, studs, Trayvon Walker, guys that were high NFL draft picks. And that's just on the front. They had good offensive lines. They had some, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, DeAndre Swift, explosive backs, corners. I mean, forget about a safety, Malachi Starks. They had Caleb Downs for a season. He obviously went the other way in the portal. So you just don't have a lot of impact guys like they're used to having. And look at this Alabama-Georgia game. And I said, which of these guys on the front would you even compare? Let's just say any defensive player. Like what defensive player in that game, Alabama-Georgia, not how any game. We're talking about Alabama-Georgia, games that usually have 10 first-round defensive players on the field at one time. Was any player on that field comparable to Ruben Bain? Like even close? I didn't see that with any of those teams. Oh, Tommy Cruz saying, I wonder if we get Kobe Young back. That was the other thing about that game. You had two receivers making plays for Georgia and Alabama, respectively. Kobe Young with a touchdown, Isaiah Horton with a touchdown. I think either of those guys could have helped us. Not listed on this bracket, but teams you have to consider. Oklahoma. I apologize. Even Matir Gone, I think you got to at least put him in this category because they've been playing good football. Sounds like Matir's only been gone a couple weeks. But I thought their schedule's too tough. He's headed for some losses. So I agree with Bud not projecting them, but you have to talk about them as one of the top teams. I don't, with the injury to Matir and even more than that, just their general, just the toughness of their schedule, their up and down play. Matir's not an experienced playmaker, game manager. I mean, he's definitely an experienced playmaker, not an experienced game manager. I don't see it there, but they're a good team. Last team I want to talk about, Notre Dame, one of the best teams I saw on Saturday. I think Notre Dame is exceptional. I see some comments here about Notre Dame. Michael Sear saying Notre Dame shows how great our defense and offense is. I mean, that offense was outstanding, and more particularly the running game. Jordan Love had 4 touchdowns. Jeremiah Love had 4 touchdowns, and he didn't even sniff the end zone against the Canes. So that's a major, major differentiator there. When you look at Miami's front, what they're able to do to Notre Dame, what Notre Dame's done for everybody else. Because even on, let's just say Notre Dame's offense did work against Texas A&M's defense too. Bleed Orange and Green said, chill. The media's going to kill you for saying Gunnar isn't a game changer. They love his grit. Yeah, I heard he must be a great hang because he's such a good teammate that everybody wanted him, even though the guy can't play. 130 yards for Gunnar Stockton. And he's not bad. Like, he's not a bad quarterback, Gunnar Stockton. He can make some plays. He's going to win games. But we're talking about the SEC. Are you really taking him over a lot of guys? It's probably, if I laid out who would you take over, like just if you're the Georgia Bulldogs, and I say, I'm going to place this player on the Georgia Bulldogs with their good running backs. They've added some receivers. Their receivers are pretty good right now. They have pretty good tight ends. Offensive line, still not what it should be, but there's talent there. If I just plucked other quarterbacks from the SEC and dropped them in, I think Lenore Sellers, best quarterback in the SEC from what I can see, just talent perspective. He's the one I would pick first. A tier from a production standpoint has been very good. Ty Simpson's playing good ball. I take him over him. I would take Arch, but obviously I understand why that's more of a wait and see. Trinidad Chambliss is playing at a higher level than Gunnar Stockton. Marcel Reed, that's close, but I did say he's playing at a higher level than Gunnar Stockton with the dual threat ability. Diego Pavia, I would take over Gunnar Stockton. He's just as gritty, but more of a playmaker in that conference. And I know I'm missing people. Blake Shapen from Mississippi State. I won't say him, but he's playing well. Bo Perbula, I would probably take either the same or over Gunnar Stockton. There's a lot of guys in the SEC that I would put at a higher level than where he's at right now. So they need more talent, and they need more talent around him. It's not just him. They got a lot of guys that aren't up to par. Joey Aguilar, another quarterback who's playing at a pretty high level. Maybe that's more of the offense, but he's putting up better numbers than Gunnar is. A lot of talk about Kirby passing on the field goal. Kirby's going to do what he does. I mean, look, this guy's got 2 championships. He won the SEC last year. I think from a coaching standpoint, Georgia's there. I think Georgia's problem is they don't have the players that they used to have. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Johnny Lagoon, new father, says, where's Oregon best in the country? What do they do better than others outside of having a coach that looks like he's on booger sugar? I think they are a well-coached team. I think they're balanced, man. I think they are like Miami. They're balanced. They can run the ball. You saw that against Penn State. They outran Penn State. All this talk about Penn State having this great offensive line, all this talk about Penn State having the best running back tandem in the country by far. They went to Happy Valley, Oregon, did the whiteout game, all that theatrics, and they outran them 176 to 139. And that was with really a lot of true freshmen. Dier Hill, who's a true freshman out of Illinois, very, very interesting player. He's averaging over 10 yards a carry on the season. Very speedy back with a lot of ability. You saw Davison, Whittington, Lamar, and they got young guys making plays for him, and then some veterans as well. So they can run. Dante Moore showed he can pass when he needs to. I think he proved that in this game. And then their defense is solid. So I think Oregon's just a well-rounded team, and they're well coached. See what else we got here. Indy and Bama have the perfect playoff formula: lose early, finish strong. And these got to be careful because they're missing some guys. Or they're not playing good teams. They're missing some teams on their schedule. So they're going to not have the chance to really rehabilitate their schedule. If you look at Notre Dame's remaining schedule, USC is the only potential bowl team left. I mean, I'll say that's a little too strong. USC is the only potential ranked team left. And there's a lot of teams that aren't going to make bowls left on their schedule. So I'm going to pull up Notre Dame's schedule because that is, to me, Notre Dame, I think, is definitely one of the top 12 teams. No question about it. I'm a fan, not of the Notre Dame, but I'm a fan of what they do, how they get down. I'm a fan of Marcus Freeman as a coach. I like CJ Carr. I like Notre Dame. I think that was a big win and a good team. But when you look at their schedule, Arkansas is not going to finish strong. They might fire their coach midseason. Oh, Taylor Green, another quarterback that could potentially be more, if you put him in Georgia's head of Gunnar Stockton and built around his talents. Still raw player in a lot of ways, but a very good between the years, hardworking, improving player with a lot of tools. I think he could fit well in Georgia. That's another one I didn't mention. But look at the schedule for Notre Dame. Boise State, not what they once were. NC State, struggling, just lost to Virginia Tech. USC just lost to Illinois. Lincoln Riley, just not building a very tough team there. Boston College, struggling, just lost to Cal, 1-3. Navy, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, terrible. Stanford, terrible. So they're good. They should sweep this and just blow teams out, but they're going to be tight on the playoffs. I think what they're probably going to do is they're going to beat these teams so badly that they'll be like that last team in, and then it'll be a tough out. But they're serious, man. They're a good team. That was a good win. Johnny Lagoon, being a father rules. Finally sleeping 4 hours. Most important thing about young fatherhood: take care of the wife, take care of the mom. That's the most important thing. There's only so much a grown man can do with a little baby. You got to take care of the mom, Johnny. That's the number one piece of advice. Grizz, you like Miami's defense over Ohio State? Both really, really good. I think Ruben Bain and Messidor, that combination, is better than what Ohio State has. And Ohio State has some really, really good running front seven players. Number 8, I love for Ohio State. I'm blanking on his name, but he was probably the best player on the field against Texas, and he's been good all year. A revelation as that edge guy, replacing the 2 second-rounders they had last year. So Ohio State's got a lot of talents. the talented players in the front. But I think with Miami, the advantage Miami has is that Ruben Bain is the best of all of the players by a significant margin. I mean, he's a true impact guy, similar to when they had Chase Young over there at Ohio State, or Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, legit difference-making type player. But Ohio State's in the conversation. They got a lot of talent, great culture, winning team. Nashville came. Miami was a -6 against FSU. I think that's a fair spread given the emotional factors and all the other stuff. Might hurt, might rain too. So yeah, I think Miami stacks up well at the end of the day with some of these other teams because of our balance. So Tommy Cruz talks about our D-line. Some people think, I've heard this from national people, this is not my bias, that Miami has the best offensive line, defensive line combo in the country. I wouldn't push back on it. I would not push back on any of that. I definitely wouldn't push back on getting expert help when you're injured. We've all at one point consider ourselves athletes. Some of us still consider ourselves athletic and fit, right? We like to be active and moving. Probably know how hard it is when you get hurt to sit on the injured list with an injury or pain. Maybe even try to hack your own rehab, come back early. But if compromising your movement or performance is not an option, you don't want to come back 50%. You want to come back at your best. Call the experts at the University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute, whether it's elite football players like what you see with the University of Miami or just any of us moving every day. The University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute is the trusted choice for those who demand excellence. Not mediocre, not 90%, 100% as best we can be. Set an appointment today at uhealthsports.com. What other comments do we have here? Another rainy game. I know, man. I want to see Carson Beck, just nice clear day, throwing it all around the yard. Also, I'm worried about Poyser. Sometimes he looks like he gives up on plays. I think he's playing pretty hard, man. He was flying around on last Saturday. He knocked himself out at one point. Luckily, it wasn't worse, but he lost it for a second there, flying around, trying to make contact and knock someone's tooth loose. So Poyser's playing very physical. By the way, over 1250 on right now. Like and subscribe to the show. Again, appreciate everybody joining us here. I miss you guys. Take a quick sip of coffee. My jet lag's crazy, but I'm trying to get back on track here. Sorry about that. But yeah, 1260 on, and like and subscribe. Appreciate everybody joining us. A lot of time spent in the airport. I was able to watch college football, which was awesome. Just catch up and really study up on other teams. But there was some downtime too. And if you have downtime in your life, like to play games on your phone, KashKick.com. That's KashKick.com. One of the top apps in the country, in the world. Over 4.5 ratings, average ratings, over 1.5 million downloads. And what is everybody doing? They're playing games and making money on the side. And this month with the Play It Forward Challenge, you can also earn money for the American Cancer Society. So here's what I mean. You download KashKick, the KashKick app, KashKick.com, or on the App Store, KashKick, and that brings all the games together. So you have all types of different games, puzzles, RPGs, sports, whatever you're into, they got it. There's a whole variety of games that are organized for you on KashKick. You play the games, you earn some extra money. It's totally legit. Again, there's over 4.5 average rating on the App Store, on the top 5 lifestyle apps in the world. So it's legit. You can make extra money on the side simply by playing games in your downtime. Then now with this Play It Forward deal, they are going to also donate to, they mean KashKick, also, the advertisers that work with KashKick are going to be donating to the American Cancer Society while you play. So all you got to do is play with all the games made easy for you. Get money for yourself, get money for cancer research for the American Cancer Society. I mean, that's pretty much a win-win, easy money right there. Easy deal for KashKick, KashKick. Bangkok Vice, one game at a time. Don't be like FSU fans that are 2-10 last year. They played high school teams and thought they were the I won't say it. Be humble. Go Canes. Listen, I hope they're humble. We don't have to be humble because we're not the ones playing. That's what I always say. I mean, I certainly hope they're not acting like me. They gotta worry about their next workout, their next meeting. They gotta worry about everything, all the little details. We're just fans, man. We're just talking about it. I think we got a good team, but at the same time, I know, we're one injury away from real problems. Right? That's just the nature of the sport. And we also know the nature of the sport. These are young players. There's a lot going on. These high-intensity environments, going on the road for the first time. We saw Alabama against Florida State. Alabama was certainly the most talented team, the more talented team compared to FSU. but they still lost. So got to be ready to play. We'll talk about that game all week in the matchups, but I think certainly from a talent standpoint, from a level of play standpoint, Miami way further ahead than FSU, but that's not a guarantee that Miami's going to take care of business on Saturday. That's why we watch. That's why we'll be watching that all week. Over 1,300 on like and subscribe, because we are going nonstop here on the CanesInSight podcast all week with wall-to-wall coverage of Miami versus Florida State. And I will be there on location seeing all you guys. Maybe we'll do a show from out there in Tally. Last thing I wanted to talk about here, because I thought this was an interesting point. My guy John, shout out for this idea, which is, and I want to get your comments, so let us know in the chat, are some coaches that are traditional, either legendary coaches or just staple coaches, falling behind because of NIL and portal and the new ways of college football? We all know Saban, once you could pay players, and Alabama had legally, and Alabama didn't have that cheating advantage, that he left, retired to do media. Still looks great, still looks like he could coach, but he's taking a step back, doing something else instead of rolling with the changes of college football. That's a noticeable one, given that, again, I think he's still capable of coaching, but that was kind of the canary in the coal mine. Now you look at Dabo Swinney. Clemson's got 3 losses. They're in deep, deep troubles. They look nothing like the Clemson program we're used to. They haven't for a while. Even last year, winning the ACC, they didn't look like your typical Clemson team. The proud program they are. It shows you how good of a program they are and their culture that they won last year, but they were clearly going down from a talent standpoint. This year, overrated and struggled. Mike Gundy, one of the staples of the college coaching profession, the guy that people were asking us at Miami to get for decades. It feels like ever since he was at Oklahoma State, people were asking Miami to get him as the head coach. He's fired. The bottom completely falls out at his alma mater, place where he was an icon, really put them on the map in many ways after a long, long period of struggle. Kirby Smart, the roster that Georgia has, you lose a Carson Beck to Miami, replace him with a homegrown guy that's not as good. You don't get a Fernando Mendoza in the portal, which I think they could have done and would have helped them and improved their chances of winning a national championship. You lose your best pass rusher in Damon Wilson to Missouri. You don't have that just control of your own players. Forget about adding a ton of players in the portal. You don't see those top 10 first-round picks on Georgia's roster right now. And if they're there, tell me I don't see them. You got to squint to see guys that could be first-rounders. So they've really fallen off in that department. Brian Kelly. A lot of people thought Brian Kelly was going to go to LSU and it was going to be off and running. He left a great job at Notre Dame because the theory was LSU would give him a chance to win bigger. Truth is, Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, they have been the better program than LSU since Brian Kelly left. You look at, started off 2 10-win seasons, but 4 loss, 3 loss, then including with Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner, one of the best quarterbacks on the planet in recent college football history, plus some really, really good receivers as well. Then last year, 4 losses with Garrett Nussmeier, now 4-1, and really they just don't look like a very good football team offensively, which you'd expect Kelly to be good there. I thought was the defense and the overall athleticism is where LSU would take them to another level, but that's not happening. So, yeah, we're seeing just a decline. Lord Bagington mentioned, Nate, appreciate your support. Noah's talking about our least skill position blocking. That's another game changer for us between O-line, D-line. Yeah, no, Miami definitely, it's a culture, right, with the Miami Hurricanes right now. Receivers blocking, defensive backs tackling, everything else. So I think that's what's interesting is that Miami, it's not just the portal guys they brought in, it's their ability to transform their roster and not just improve their talent, but also their culture. With these other teams I just mentioned, you're seeing guys that either the culture has fallen back, the talent has fallen back, or both. Kirk Ferentz, another one. Indiana's really passed by Iowa as that preeminent program in that region. That's not your traditional power. Iowa for years producing NFL players, winning a lot of games, being a consistent, not an over-the-top team, but a consistently good program. I think Indiana's filled that role a different way, but that's right now Curt Cignetti and those guys. And talk about active in the portal. That is an extremely active program in the portal, and they've been able to, and NIL. I mean, Fernando Mendoza was not cheap, so that's a team that really, I think, adapted, whereas in Iowa, they did bring in a Mark Gronowski, not as strong of a start as you would have hoped. Mendoza clearly the better portal addition of those two and was the better player here on Saturday. Of course, Gronowski got injured, but ultimately Mendoza made a lot of difference making plays, and as did his supporting cast with Indiana beating Iowa on the road. Very rugged. That was a good football game. Big Ten football, fun to watch. But put Kirk Ferentz in that category of guys that maybe haven't made the adjustments. So I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Let me know here. Also, we talk about Buffs and Deion's poor time management. Crazy. Yeah, Deion Sanders having a rough year here. I know he's had health problems as well. I was hoping he'd make this team bowl eligible without his son, without Travis Hunter, just to show kind of how far he's taken the program. And he has taken the program beyond where it was, but obviously not just because of his son. But yeah, it's not trending well for Deion. I could see him leaving this year, and if he does, that left tackle, number 77, Jordan Seaton, guy who already works out in Miami, not draft eligible, true sophomore, best true sophomore tackle, or one of the best true sophomore tackles in America. Washington, D.C. native. If Deion retires or something happens there, another bad year, you could see Seaton. At least I could see Seaton. No info. This is just kind of connecting dots, knowing that Seaton's an IMG guy who trains with Francis Malinois, an East Coast guy. I could see him being our left tackle next year with the way things are trending. Again, no info, just kind of putting 2 and 2 together there. And he's a really, really talented player. Appreciate everybody here in the channel. Johnny says, you're right, the game's changed. Texas Tech is a doormat. All of a sudden, they look like a power. And I don't see Joey McGuire being this savant. They're handling it well. Sergio says, I think transfer portal affected the old coaches. They can't treat players how they want. I know they're stuck in the program. An athlete doesn't like your style, they can leave right away. And you got to, be aggressive, man. I think a guy like Cignetti even knows that was an aggressive move. Georgia did not do that. Georgia letting Beck walk out the door and going with Gunner. Some of Clemson's homegrown stuff and not using the portal. I mean, they're paying for it. Napier's not an old coach, but he also got smoked by not using the portal. MD talking about the Canes here. The hit rate from this portal class is unreal. A testament to Marlowe's talent evaluation and ability to adapt to this era. Well said. Let's see what else we got going on here. Nashville saying, build the trenches in recruiting, plug the holes in the portal. I would agree. The one thing I'd add is not just plugging holes, get impact players in the portal. There's no rule that says you can't get NFL players in the portal. Right? I think the trenches, the reason why the trenches make a lot of sense in recruiting, particularly like the Francis Malinois of the world, is those guys are hard to get in the portal. Now, Jordan Seaton might be an example of that kind of guy that becomes a portal player. We'll have to see how that kind of goes. But Ruben Baines, those guys are hard to find. Jalen Carter's, you're not getting those guys necessarily in the portal. So, although David Blaze is a really good portal addition, you just don't want to live there. So I agree. In recruiting, here's the way I lay it out. In recruiting, get the freaks. Get the guys that are just not walking around. Size-wise, speed-wise. Get the physical anomalies in recruiting, which is more going to be the trench guys with just the freakish combination of size and athleticism. And then in the portal, get other guys. Get the best of everything else, which is going to be easier to get because there's a lot of high-quality quarterbacks in the portal. The vast majority, overwhelming majority of NFL quarterbacks right now are coming from the portal. It's become, it's not even close. The quality in the portal versus high school right now. Very rarely you get a high school player that you pay a lot of money out of high school and they stay with you and go pro. It just doesn't happen. It's all portal guys. So we're quarterback for sure portal. Running backs, you can get guys in the portal, though, again, the true freaks of the world, if there's a true freak like a Saquon Barkley or a Bijan Robinson sitting there, you can grab those. Same thing, a receiver. If there's Jeremiah Smith, it's worth getting them because they're just freaks and pay him a ton. But if you don't get him, there's a lot of receivers supplying the portal. Defensive back, similar. Those freak corners with the size and speed, they're hard to get in the portal. We kind of lucked into Xavier Lucas with a weird situation, but generally those are harder players to get. So those are the freaks at corner, getting recruiting, but otherwise you can get those guys like quality players in the portal. So I think that's really the philosophy. And some of these old coaches are just not able to do it. Oso said, I love that interview you did with Motori. It was so good. Or Torre, it was so good. Appreciate you. We also really enjoyed talking to Keelan Mary, and that interview came out on Friday. So check that one out. Went about an hour. I didn't even say a word, man. He was talking so much, and it was such good stuff. I love his energy. Great kid. It was really cool off camera, too. Love Keelan Mary and his family, cheering for them to have a big game against FSU and show that he could be the deep threat that we're trying to add to this team. Over 1,500 on. Like and subscribe. Hassan Shiab, I really wish Miami would have pushed harder to get Zechariah Branch. Miami would have been even more dangerous with him, don't you think? Absolutely. He would have helped him, Singleton. I think those are all guys that were affected by not having the quarterback in place. Now, and I'm very happy with how the quarterback turned out with Beck. The only negative I would say about it was just the timing of some of the receivers that we didn't get. But we got some good ones still. I mean, I think Daniels and Marion are obviously helping us a lot. Tony Johnson. But yeah, there were a couple dynamic speed guys, Singleton, Branch among them, that because we didn't have a quarterback set up, they went elsewhere. John Lagoon saying, yeah, Wisconsin, Iowa, BYU teams got JUCO kids and keep linemen for 5 years is dead. I don't know about that. Utah, I mean, Utah should have been better this year because they got 2 tackles that are first rounders. They got smoked by Texas Tech, a real portal heavy team. So maybe it is dead. But I think some of that is just they're not recruiting those guys as well as they could. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Again, almost 1,500 on. Appreciate everybody being part of the show. Let's see. My old man says ACC refs just gave Georgia Tech a berth in the championship with horrible game-changing call against Wake. I can't really argue with you there. But shout out to Haynes King, man. The guy finds a way to get it done. Gris saying, we worried about our ability to make plays down the middle of the field. We need to get more explosive. I think we'll talk about this over the course of the FSU week, but I think JoJo Trader getting healthy, Jordan Lau getting healthy, Elijah Lofton getting healthy, that's going to help us quite a bit. Deep Water says, after watching the Storm session with Keith Lemary and Marlo's comments on JoJo having to show out more in practice make a lot more sense. Yeah, it's competitive, man. They're battling out there. Spencer, do you think Fernando Mendoza would have been better for Miami than Beck? I think Beck's the guy. Better fit, better personality fit, so experienced at the big time level. I wouldn't trade Beck, but I think Fernando Mendoza's a first round pick, and I think he is way, way better than a lot of people thought. But let's put it that way. Wes Sutton, as to me, we'll talk about over the course of the week. I think there's going to be the key to Saturday. We need our defense to keep playing the other side of the ball and keep swarming to the ball. Got to keep swarming. Got to keep playing violent. You need to take that energy and physicality and violence that we play with at Hard Rock, we didn't play with last year, that we have played with this year. Got to take that on the road against FSU and match and exceed their intensity. Derek says, not just the SEC, there are a lot of ACC quarterbacks that I would take over Gunnar Stockton, including the one whose name I shall not utter at FSU. I'm not ready to go there, but I think ACC-wise, Klubnik is probably better than Gunnar Stockton, even with his faults. Oh, it's gotten closer. Definitely, I take Beck over Stockton. We know that story. Beck's just a lot more productive in that with worse players in that same team. Who else in the ACC? I like Mensa over Stockton. I like CJ Bailey over Stockton. Personally, I think put him in that team, and his running would cause a lot of problems. Plus, he's a good decision maker, and he has a strong arm. Who else? Holstein, no. Miller, Moss. I'd probably rather have Stockton. Who else am I missing here from Tommy Castellanos? I'm not ready to go there. The quarterback for Cal, Zagapolitelli. Young guy. He's probably not ready, but talent-wise, for sure. I'd rather have him than Stockton long-term. Yeah, I'd say there's a few. Big Ten, there's a bunch. Mendoza, Dante Moore, I'd rather have. Drew Aller, I'd probably rather have Stockton. Aller's got more upside. Bryce Underwood, I'd rather have Underwood by the middle of the year. I think he's trending very fast. Julian Sane, I'm not a huge Sane guy just because I don't love his, he's, to me, average size, average arm strength, average athleticism, but decision-making is very, very good for his age. He's a natural thrower as far as accuracy and anticipation. So I think Sane I would take over Stockton as well. Altmaier I would take over Stockton. Just thinking about Big Ten quarterbacks. Help me out in the chat. Oh, Haynes King from Georgia Tech. How could I forget? Yeah, I would take him over Stockton for sure. And Healthy Angeli, I'm a big fan of, but he's hurt. So yeah, there's a few ACC and Big Ten quarterbacks I would take over this dude. DeMont Williams from Washington. So Hassan saying, why don't you like Sane? You guys have the same hairstyle. Yeah, my thing with him is he's good. I mean, Sane's solid. He's going to have games where he plays against Rutgers and throws for 6 touchdowns or whatever. I just think in the high intensity games, he's not a bit. He's not. I would say his size is below average. Average at best, but I would say below average for the Big Ten. Look at the guys I just named: Underwood, Mendoza, Dante Moore. Compare them to Sane size wise. I think his athleticism below average. He's not a threat to run. I don't find him particularly mobile as far as throwing on the run. Talk about Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson, 2 guys we just named. I'd put his athleticism below those guys. Forget, the actual good athletes that can run. Arm strength, I don't see him having a cannon arm. I think he's a good mid-range thrower. He has touch. He's a natural thrower. I just don't think he's got a lot of horsepower. So, yeah, that'd be my biggest question with Ohio State. But he's a smart quarterback. He's gonna have some very good stats. Oh, Cam Ward apparently just made a great play. So I think it's my cue to sign off and watch the Titans game. Again, appreciate everybody joining us. Real quick, before I get out of here, two guys I want to talk about actually, because I'm about to hit one of these right now and get unwind and drink one of these as I watch college or pro football. Truth is, I only watch pro football because my kids watch pro football at this point. Man, I would rather watch college highlights and catch up on the Arizona State game, as opposed to watching NFL these days. But I'll be watching with one of these, BUZZN. Wish I had these in Greece. BUZZN. First order, use code FIRST50 for 50% off. BUZZN, BUZZN. That's at drinkbuzzn.com. Just go ahead and order it to your doorstep. Use order crate. I know a lot of my buddies and a lot of our listeners have done so. They text me pictures of it. Or you could go, if you're in South Florida, Big Daddy's Liquor is one of the biggest liquor stores, liquor chains in South Florida. Go up there. They got BUZZN, BUZZN. All bubbles, no trouble, 7.5% real THC. Enjoy one of these while you're watching NFL, while you're watching college, while you're unwinding from a day of work. BUZZN, all hang, no hangover, and less calories. Also, before I get out of here, I want to talk about a really cool event. Johnny Lagoon would have been there, but I know he was dealing with this kid. But it was an incredible opportunity to meet the best player in America. We all know who that is. That is not whoever the Heisman candidate is. My kids are about to run. I hear my kids screaming in the other rooms. They're watching the Cam Ward game. Guarantee they're going to run into the show and interrupt it and tell me about this play. But he was best player in the country last year, best player in the country this year, right there. Ruben Bain. He was the Miami Hurricane team store signing meeting people. This was on Sunday, so unfortunately this one's done, but these things are happening pretty much every weekend these days at the Miami Hurricane team store. Look at all the great items. Use promo code INSIGHT20. Get 20% off your first item if you're online, you're not in town. That's MiamiHTS.com. Same promo code INSIGHT20. But look at this, man. This is awesome. Imagine meeting the best player in the country as a young lad. Really, really cool. Did an interview. There you see the setup. They always got these games rolling, so you could just enjoy the latest Miami victory at the Miami Hurricane team store. All right, guys. Appreciate everybody joining us. Appreciate you guys supporting. I'm so glad to be back. You're going to be sick of me because I'm going to go live way more than I need to just because I want to talk. I miss you guys. Again, appreciate you. Like and subscribe to the show. Go Canes.